read it?
Go ahead. This is chapter 2, verse number 11. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asochan Anvasocha Stram Pragnapadams Padamscha Basase Gatasuma Gatasumcha Nanasochanti Panditaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. This is a lecture given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder of the ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness.
The following is a class on the Bhagavad Gita as it is, second chapter, text number 11, given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, recorded on the 4th of March, 1966, in New York, New York.
Sri Rupam Chakrajatam. So Krishna is in this he's identified the Bhagavan. Bhagavan means that nobody can surpass his knowledge, because I have already given the definition of Bhagavan, that a personality who is in full all the opulences, wealth, strength, fame, and knowledge, beauty and renunciation, he is God. You see? So, now in this, at the present moment when people are godless, I think this definition is convincing. If you find out a personality, that one who has got in full all these opulences, he is God, then it will be very difficult to present an ordinary man as God. You see? You will find that in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna was convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but because in future others will have doubt about Krishna, he requested Krishna, will you show me your universal form? And Krishna agreed and showed him the universal form. That means in future, any intelligent man accepting a so-called God may also ask him, just show something that you are God. Without showing something simply by false advertisement, one cannot be God. The whole mistake is that we do not know what is God. We consider God maybe just like one of us. No. The God who is controlling such a huge affairs of universal administration, he cannot be. He is superconscious. That is superconsciousness. Now, here, Asachyana Suchastang Pragnamanang Subhasis. Now the whole living existence is a very subtle thing. Now this body made of earth, water, fire, air, sky, this gross body. And behind this there is another subtle body, that is mind, intelligence and ego. So, when we give up this gross body, that subtle body carries me to another gross body. So, when this body is lifeless, that body, subtle body is not lifeless. Just like at night, when this gross body is asleep, the subtle body works. Therefore we dream. The subtle body carries to next life. And I have given in the introduction that how one man changes his body. Janjanabapi smaran loki tajatanti kalevaram. Now the subtle body, I mean to say mind, intelligence and ego, when these three things, psychic life, is absorbed in a certain kind of thought, the dying man gets a similar body in the next life. That we shall come when we make progress in the study of Bhagavad Gita. Just like the air passing over the rose tree carries the flavor of the rose, and the air passing over a fieldy place carries the flavor of the fieldy place. The air is pure, but because it is passing over certain conditions, it carries the flavor. Similarly, the mind, intelligence and ego carries the flavor of our present activities to the next life. That is the subtle mystery of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. Now in this life we purify just like rose. The next life we shall get a body which is full of flavor. If in this life, if we practice devotion of God, the next life is to become the associate of God. And that Chintamani, Prakarasad, we are transferred to that planet. These are simple things. The whole thing is in my head. If I want to be degraded, I can prepare myself in this life for such degradation, in the next life. And if we want to elevate ourselves to the highest perfection of life, as to become one of the associates of God, we can prepare ourselves like that. We will find in the advanced chapter that Janti Deva Brata Devan Pitrin Janti Pitri Brataha. Now we are trying to go to the moon planet. Now here in this life, if we cultivate ourselves with the same thought, the moon planet, that means the moon planet, about moon planet we have to hear and we have to think that I shall go in such and such place. Unless you hear, you cannot have idea. Just like our friend Mr. Cohen, he has left for California. Now, so far I am concerned, I have no idea of California. Now he has told me that after reaching there, he will write about the description of the place. Now suppose if reading that description of the place, I think of going there, so I prepare myself. Oh, I must go there. So, just like I was describing that Chintamani Dham, what sort of trees are there, and you are very much pleased that I must go there. So we have to hear. Unless we hear what sort of God is, what sort of God's place is, what is the mode of life there, we cannot be attracted. We cannot be attracted. So here they say Gotasum or Gotasumsum. There are two sort of bodies in which we are now entered. Now, suppose this gross body appears to be now dead and gone, stopped. But one must know that subtle body has carried him to another body. The subtle body is not lost life. the life is there. So here Krishna says that either of the gross body or a subtle body has to be also left. When you get liberation, that subtle body, that egoistic life has also to be left. Now at any condition, the body has to be left. So why one should cry for this body? Therefore Krishna says that a learned man does not lament over this body. The whole question that a soul is different from this body, the whole question is solved in one verse, you see. Gatasum agatasumcha nanu suchanti pandita. One who is actually learned, he does not, he has no concern of this body. He is concerned with the activities of the soul. And so, you are speaking of so many things that if these my friends die, their wives will become widow. These are all according to the bodily relation you are speaking. And you are posing yourself just like a very learned man, but you are a fool number one, because your whole conception is on the body. Your whole conception of argument with me was on the body, but you are posing himself just as if you are very learned man. So anyone who has got conception, the identification of this body, he is not a learned man, he is a fool. He may be into the calculation of academic education. He may be BA, MA, PhD, DSc or something like doctor, but if he has got his identification with this body, he is not a learned man according to Bhagavad Gita. Not only according to whole Vedic literature. This is the first instruction. If we want to make progress towards spiritual advancement of knowledge, this preliminary knowledge we must have, that I am not this body. I am not this body. This is the preliminary standing of spiritual knowledge. This is not advancement. This is simply ABCD. ABCD of spiritual life. In the Bhagavad, there is a very nice verse in this connection, in which it is stated, Jasatma buddhi kunapeti dhatuke sadhik kalatradi subhoma ijjadhi. Jasatma buddhi kunapeti dhatuke. Kunape means this bag made of three elements. Now according to Ayurvedic medical system, this body is made of three elements. Kapha, Pitta, Vayu. Kapha, Pitta, Vayu.
Three elements?
Yes. Kapha means cold. Coldness.
Carbon.
Cup. What is called cup? Cupping. Kapha, Pitta, Vayu. Coldness, heat and air. Coldness, heat and air. Yes. Only these three things constitute this body. That which is called a bag made of three elements: coldness, air and fire. Heat, coldness and air. This body is meant.
What does coldness stand for?
Coldness you can take it for water, all secretion.
Water.
Yes.
Yes, water, fire.
Water, fire and air. Now, the Bhagavad says that Jasatma buddhi kunapeti dhaduke. If anyone is identified with this body made of water, air and fire, and Jasatma buddhi kunapeti dhaduke, this is a body made of three things. Now, and sadhik kalatradishu, and if one thinks the issues, the byproducts of this body as his own kinsmen, just like my children, my wife, my relatives, my father, my mother, my brother, my nation, my society, everything is due to this bodily relation. And there are thousands of women loitering in the street of the newborn, and suppose I have got some bodily connection with you, I call you my wife. And because I have got bodily relation with you, all the children produced by you, they are my children. You see? So whole thing is, the basic principle is wrong, that I am this body. And now from the expansion of the body, the whole thing is false. Because I am not this body. So my expansion of body is also not a... But whole world is going on this false impression. The whole world is going on. They're fighting between one nation and another nation because due to this body. So the Sattva Buddhi Kunapet Vidhadate, the one who is identified with this body, which is made of water, fire and air, and the issues from this body as kinsmen and own men, the Sattva Buddhi Kunapet Vidhadate, Sadhik Kalatradishu, and I mean the attachment for such issues, and Bhoma Ijjadhi, and the land from which this body has grown up, that is worshipable. Now everybody is fighting for the land. Oh, we are Indian, we are Pakistani, we are Vietnamese, we are American, we are German. The fighting, so much fighting is going on. The land for the land. So land has become worshipable, so worshipable that one is sacrificed his valuable life for that land. You see? But the land is so dear. Why? Because his body has become grown up from this land. So that is also there, the bodily connection. So the Sattva Buddhi Kunapet Vidhadate Sadik Kalatradishu Bhoma Ijjati. Bhoma, in the land, they have no what, they have no meaning for God, not the Russian philosophy. They have no meaning for God, but they have every meaning for the land. For the land. The land as they are identified as worshipable, and they are prepared to sacrifice anything for the land. So the Sattva Buddhi Kunapet Vidhadate, one who is identified with his body, and one who thinks the bodily offshoots as his own man, and the land from which the body has grown as worshipable. Jatirtha Buddhi Salile. Jatirtha Buddhi Salile. Now, in Christian world also, that the water of the Jordan River is sacred, is considered. Similarly, Hindus also, when they go to some pilgrimage, they take bath on the sacred river. But one should know that going to the sacred place does not mean simply to take bath in that water. Real meaning of going to a sacred place to find out some intelligent scholar in spiritual knowledge, they are living there, to make association with them, to take knowledge from them. That is the purpose of going to pilgrimage. Because in pilgrimage, in holy places, just like my residence is at Vrindavan. So at Vrindavan there are many great scholars and saintly persons living. So one should go to such holy places not simply to take bath in the water, but he must be intelligent enough to find out some spiritually advanced man living there and take instruction from him and benefited by that. But he does not go. He takes simply bath and purchases some goods and advertises, I have been to such and such pilgrimage. So the Sattva Buddhi Kunapet Vidhadate and Jatirtha Buddhi Salile na karhiche janesu avijnesu. He has the attachment for pilgrimage for taking bath only, but he has no attraction for the learned people there. You see? So, such kind of man is considered as ass. Sayava go khara. Go means cow and khara means ass. So practically the whole world is moving as a civilization of cow and asses. Because the whole thing is identification with this. The big center is this body, an expansion of the body, the attraction, whole attraction is there. Yes, you want to?
Yes, in the places known as secret places.
Yes.
In sacred places.
Yes.
Isn't it also the fact that there is more magnetism there because of the meeting of saints and Lord
Certainly. Therefore, the place itself has got some magnetism.
Yes.
Just like at Vrindavan, that is practical. Now, here I am sitting in New York, a very great, the world's greatest city, so magnificent city. But my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. Yes. I am not happy here.
Yes.
I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. But then why you are? No, because it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people. Because I am ordered by superior, my spiritual master, that whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western country and you must distribute this knowledge. So in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, I am here because I am in duty. That is my personal convenience. If I go and sit down at Vrindavan, I shall be very comfortable there, and I will have no anxiety, nothing of the sort, you see. But I have taken all the risks in the old age because I am in duty bound. So I have to execute my duty in spite of all my inconveniences. That is the idea. So this is the whole thing. The whole basic principle of spiritual advancement of knowledge. One should first be convinced that he is not this body. He is not this body. Then other spiritual knowledge will begin. This is the basic principle. You will find it. You will find it in the Bhagavad Gita that this situation of spiritual life is called Brahma Bhuta. So, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na sothati na kangshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labhate param. So, unless one understands himself, he also cannot understand God also. In his misunderstanding position, now what Dr. Mishra is teaching is very nice, because he is teaching that just first of all you know what I am, what I am. That's very good. But that what I am can be known from the Bhagavad Gita also, that I am not this body. I am not this body. That knowledge, at least theoretically, one must accept that I am not this body. Now, Krishna is describing that what is the position? I am not this body, that's all right. Now, actually, what we are? I am not body, that's all right. Then, what we are? Now the next person is Krishna. We must always know that Krishna, here it is said Bhagavan Vacha. Bhagavan Vacha means that he has got so extensive knowledge that there cannot be any mistake. His authority. So whatever he says is right. That is the conception of Bhagavan. Here it is not said Krishna Vacha, because somebody may doubt Krishna. Well, Krishna was a historical personality, why you should be so much concerned with Krishna, as is general view. But here it is said Bhagavan was, and I have given you the definition of Bhagavan, that he is all knowledge. So whatever he will speak, Bhagavan, there cannot be any mistake. For ordinary persons, there are four difficulties, four imperfectness. Just like we are ordinary men, we have got four imperfectness. What is that imperfectness? That we must commit mistake. We must commit mistake. Our constitutional position at the present moment is such that we are sure to commit mistake. Even greatest politician like Gandhi, he committed mistake, and so many great men, they committed mistake. To err is human, that is thought. That any man, however he may be great in the estimation of this world, he is sure to commit mistake. And another imperfection is that he is illusion. Illusion. Now, illusion, you can see, illusion means taking one thing for another. That is called illusion. Just like in the desert, accepting the sand as water. That is called illusion. Similarly, every one of us who are identified with this body is under illusion. But that's a false thing. But he has no knowledge. Even President Johnson, he is under illusion. Even the greatest scientist, he is under this illusion. So, one is sure to commit mistake, and one is under illusion, and Brahm, Pramad, and Vipralipsa. Vipralipsa means the tendency for cheating. That is the third. First is that one is sure to commit mistake, one is sure to be in illusion, and one is adapted to cheat others. Now, he is imperfect, but he wants to give knowledge to others. That is cheating. Everyone is imperfect, but he wants to give knowledge to others. Then you can ask that you are also giving us knowledge. No, I am not giving you knowledge. I am speaking Bhagavad Gita. I am giving you knowledge as given by Lord Krishna. It is not my knowledge.
But it is only interpretation.
Not interpretation, it is reading.
Yes,
I give you
cheat.
No, that is also in the definition of a conditioned soul. These four principles are there. It is not my manufactured things. These are information from authoritative scriptures, that a conditioned soul has four imperfectness. One imperfectness is that he is sure to commit mistake. He is illusion, and he has got a tendency to cheat, and above all, his senses are imperfect. So anyone who is above all these four imperfectness, who never commits mistake, who is never illusion, who never cheats other, and who has got perfect senses, he is God. That is also another definition. He may not be God, the supreme God, but anyone who comes to this stage of life, he is liberated. He is as good as God.
Hare Krishna. So we see, actually, we're going to read the purport also to this verse. 2nd chapter, 11th verse. And it says, while speaking learned words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, he's speaking to Arjuna, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. The Lord at once took the position of the teacher and chastised the student, calling him indirectly a fool. The Lord said, you are talking like a learned man, but you do not know that one who is learned, one who knows what is body and what is soul, does not lament for any stage of the body, neither in the living nor in the dead condition. As explained in later chapters, it will be clear that knowledge means to know matter and spirit and the controller of both. Arjuna argued that religious principles should be given more importance than politics or sociology. But he did not know that knowledge of matter, soul, and the Supreme is even more important than religious formularies. And because he was lacking in that knowledge, he should not have posed himself as a very learned man. As he did not happen to be a very learned man, he was consequently lamenting for something which was unworthy of lamentation. The body is born and is destined to be vanquished today or tomorrow. Therefore, the body is not as important as the soul. One who knows this is actually learned, and for him, there is no cause for lamentation, regardless of the condition of the material body. So yesterday, I visited someone who had a family that their 13-year-old son died. And obviously they were grieving and confused. And I explained to them that the son is not dead. And here you see what Prabhupada explained. He explained that only the gross material body dies. There are two coverings of the soul. Every one of us has two coverings of our soul. We have the gross material body and we have the subtle material body. The gross material body is made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether or space. And the subtle material body is made of mind, intelligence, and ego. So, at death, only the gross body dies, but the subtle body is still there, and obviously the soul. The subtle body is the repository of all desires and all of our, let's call it karma, good and bad activities that we performed. And based on those activities and based on the unfulfilled desires we have at the moment of death, we are carried to the next material body. Or, if we no longer have any material desires, and we spent our life in serving Krishna with no selfish purpose other than to please the Lord, then we attain our original spiritual body and go back to Godhead, go back to the spiritual world. So at the moment of death, what kind of body we're going to get is determined based on our desires and our activities. So in both cases, whether we take birth again in another gross material body or we are liberated from the subtle body and attain our original spiritual body, we're still alive. So the child is not actually dead. So then what is the duty of the parents? Well, I explained that their duty is to become very serious about spiritual life and continue to serve their son and all their ancestors that have died previous to them, and also serve the future generations that haven't even come yet. How do you do that? By becoming a genuine devotee of Krishna, you are able to assist and help your loved ones who have passed, and you build a platform for your future descendants, a spiritual platform. So most people, when a tragedy like that occurs, they become bitter they lose their faith in God, and basically the rest of their life they are wounded. There's a big hole in their spiritual development because of such a tragedy. But wait a minute. If you really love the person that has passed, then you take the responsibility. You act out of duty to become a genuine devotee and offer your punya, or your good acts, for the benefit of all your ancestors that have passed. So the question is, if the soul is eternal, then we have an eternal duty. If we're just these bodies, then there's no duty. Why should there be any duty for a bunch of chemicals that are going to dissipate into nature? However, that's not the real nature of the soul. The soul is not material. The soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Mamayavam sa jiva bhuta jiva loka sanatanam. Sanatana means eternal. We are eternally mama eva amsa, a part and parcel, an individual part and parcel of Krishna, who's also an individual. But we are connected eternally to the Lord. We depend on the Lord for everything. We're never independent of the Lord. So here we see this overview of life. If we do not have the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, we become atheistic, and we end up thinking that the body is everything. Now, most people, due to lack of knowledge, due to engaging in sinful activity, sinful activity, there are 4 categories. There's meat eating, there's gambling, there's intoxication, there's illicit sex. Most people are addicted to these 4 things. Therefore, they have no understanding of anything beyond the gross material body. And the extension of the gross body in terms of kinsmen, nationality, ethnic group, so forth, or this orientation, that orientation. And third is they become attached to the land that they were born on, just like India has glorified the land in the song Vande Mataram. Say, so people are willing to die for Vande Mataram. And in America, they say, make America great again. It's the greatest country in the world, And then in every country, they think people are ready to die for the land. So that type of bodily extension, it's all based on the body. The false identification with the material body. Am I this material body? Well, first of all, there are 2 bodies. There's the subtle and the gross body. Both of them are temporary, but the subtle body lasts much, much longer than the gross body. It'll continue to carry the soul from one gross body to another until the subtle body is completely purified. That means you have to purify all false conceptions in the mind, you have to purify all cheating with the intelligence, and you have to purify the false ego and turn it into the real ego. So the false ego is identification with matter, and the real ego is identification with one's eternal relationship with Krishna as a soul. So this is the dilemma that we're placed in. We have this fundamental duality. We have an eternal soul and 2 material coverings of it, a gross and subtle covering. The gross covering is coming and going rather frequently. The subtle body is much more persistent. And we can see that because most people cannot control their minds. We all have that trouble with the mind. We are prone to getting angry, we're prone to being lusty, we're prone to being an illusion, we're prone to making mistakes, and so forth. it's very, very difficult to control the mind. And as long as we do not control the mind, Bhagavad Gita says that we're living with our worst enemy. The mind that is not controlled is our worst enemy, and the mind that's controlled is our best friend. So this matrix of two coverings of the soul makes our situation almost impossible to overcome these two obstacles to liberating the soul. Well, that's because we're not accustomed to learning properly, to getting proper knowledge. Like, for example, do you learn anything about the soul in a biology class by dissecting a frog? Do you learn anything about the soul? Do you learn anything about the soul? And let's say you go to medical school and you dissect the human body. Do you learn anything about the soul? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because the teachers themselves are ignorant. So how can you learn about the soul? They're not looking for the soul. They're looking for the liver, the gallbladder, and so forth, you see. So the whole orientation of materialistic knowledge is the body. And the whole, like for example, let's take Freud. Freud is supposed to be a famous person, one of the persons who's influenced modern society. You know, there's Freud, there's Marx, and there's Darwin, three major influencers of modern society. Freud's point was that by frustrated sense gratification, one develops a psychosis, meaning mental sickness, right? And his solution was not to engage freely in sense gratification, and not to let religion put any stigma on it. You say. He said that religion is the opiate or the opium of the masses, because it tries to put a stigma on sense gratification. And basically, what he means is sex. Right? So what was his solution? Free sex. Don't deny it. Well, you see, Freud does correctly analyze that the whole material world is, in material, let's say, consciousness is based on a sense gratification. That part of his philosophy is correct. But his solution is incorrect. His solution is have free sense gratification. You know, don't deny yourself any sense gratification. That just makes the problem worse. It doesn't solve the problem. It makes it worse. Now we see that. Now the Me Too hashtag is proof that if you have unrestricted sense gratification, you become a victimizer of other people, and your desires are never satisfied. Never satisfied. See? And it only diminishes your life's energy. It diminishes your lifespan. It just causes a lot of problems. You know. So whether it's our own president or whether it's all these big movie moguls or movie stars or basketball players, football players, they just got today. There's this person in Brazil. He's the John of God. If you've ever heard of him, huh? Yeah, well, that's his name in English, but his name in Portuguese is I can't pronounce it correctly, but that's the translation, John of God, right? So he's a very famous so-called healer and spiritual, let's say, mystic. Many, many famous people go to him to get healed and to get counseling. He's very famous. You might not have heard of him, but he's very, very famous. Today, 12 women came out saying that he molested them.
Me too.
Yeah, well, it's part of Me Too hashtag, yes. 12 women came out. This guy is famous, and thousands and thousands of people go all the way to Brazil to see him. They'll fly from Europe, the United States, Russia, all over the place they go to him for spiritual and physical healing. And he's just a low-class man, just like the movie moguls and the basketball players and the football players and the politicians and so forth. A very low-class man, right? So we see that Freud's theory does not work. It's actually leading people in the wrong direction. What's the right direction? That is to control that desire for sense gratification by using your senses to please the senses of Krishna. We don't deny the senses. We use the senses to please Krishna's senses. Krishna is a person just like us. He has senses. The only difference is he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So we see how all these philosophers, psychologists, Prabhupada said once that all psychologists are nonsense. You know, if you're having married problems, you go to a marriage counselor. What do? Well, they'll try a little bit to see if you can harmonize again. But if both persons are a little adamant, they'll say, well, divorce is the best thing for you. You see? So they're all nonsense. They have no idea of what the purpose of life is. They have no idea beyond the body. They don't accept the existence of the soul. And they're taught that in the universities. Right? So this is called an egotistic life, a life that's devoid of spiritual understanding. Okay. So this verse, Krishna is telling Arjuna, you're lamenting for something that is not worthy of lamentation. Arjuna is lamenting that if he fights, he's going to kill many people, and he doesn't see how he can be happy at the end, because if he wins, he kills one side of his family. If he loses, the other side of the family dies. So he doesn't see how he'll be happy. He's not thinking of what will make Krishna happy. He's not thinking of Krishna at all. He's only thinking about himself. Although he's speaking flowery and noble words and you would say pseudo-spiritual wisdom. Why is it pseudo-spiritual? It's just like you go to a doctor and you have a pain in your chest, and he analyzes you and he says, just take some aspirin, you'll be all right. You go home, you take aspirin, and next day you're dead of a heart attack. He misdiagnosed you, right? So that's, you know, that's nonsense. That is incompetence. So in the same way, Freud is incompetent, and all material scientists are incompetent, and all so-called spiritual people and so-called philosophers, they're incompetent as long as they do not understand the difference between the body and the soul. That's Prabhupada's first point here. He's saying, well, his first point is explaining Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who no one can surpass in knowledge. He has perfect knowledge. Therefore, by hearing from Bhagavan, Krishna, and that's what we do when we read Bhagavad Gita, we receive perfect knowledge of who we are and what our duty in life is. Right? These are 5 questions that he answers. Who is God? Who are the living entities? What is material nature? What is time? And what is man's duty in life? Right? So Bhagavad Gita is God speaking to us directly. And Arjuna is asking him every significant question to clear the path of self-realization. So the first point is, who is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is a person who no one else can surpass in knowledge, right? And he possesses 5 opulences in full: beauty, knowledge, fame, power, wealth, and renunciation. Okay. Well, the problem is that philosophers and scientists and normal people have an anthropomorphic concept of God. What does that mean? Basically, it means Atmavan Manyate Jagat. The Sanskrit principle says that when you're an imperfect person and you observe something, you project your imperfectness on that. So the scientists, the philosophers, they say, look, we make mistakes. So if there's a God, he's like us. He must make mistakes too. And his biggest mistake is, if he created the world perfect, why is there evil in the world? That just proves he made a mistake. You see? So they go on like that, one after the other, putting different levels of their own imperfection on the concept of God. So, in other words, they say, well, look, wait a minute, if he's like me, then why should I worship him? I'll just worship myself, right? So that's a false argument. Say, you're setting up a straw man. If you project your imperfection on God, eventually you can reject God because he's no better than you are. Yeah. These are false ways of reasoning. So then, next point Prabhupada makes in this lecture is that unless a person understands they're not this body, everything they do, every decision they make, every book they write, everything in their life is a mistake. Just like if you buy a new car and you leave the dealership, but you go in the wrong direction, what good is it? You'll never reach your destination if you drive off in the wrong direction, right? So it's just like when there was the Twin Towers, when they were burning. At one point, people were trying to get out, and at some point, some people said, "Oh, the fire is out. You can go back." Some people turned around and went back, and they died. Someone gave them wrong information, you see. So the enemy of man is not the devil. The enemy of man is wrong information. Therefore, all the information they're giving in universities today, in high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools, is wrong information. They're not allowed to explain the existence of the soul. And do they explain the existence of the soul in their biology classes? Huh? Do they explain it in their philosophy classes? Do they explain it in the math class? Do they explain it in the science class? No. Therefore, they are purposely misleading. Well, wait a minute. You went to school, right, in India? Okay. Did they teach you about the soul? Huh?
No.
And that's India.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the United States. That's India. Well, you went to school. Okay. Did they teach you about the soul? No. In India? Okay. Point made. You see? Because whether it's India or America today, it's the same educational philosophy. It's called humanism. Humanism, if you look it up on the internet, we'll see, rejects categorically belief in God. And humanism, and that's the foundational philosophy of modern education. They say you can only rely on science, reason, and logic to determine the truth. There's no super power in existence. So then, everything they're going to say, every book they write, every clever, poem they write or whatever, it's all going to be wrong. So therefore, Prabhupada makes this point, unless a person understands the difference between the body and the soul, everything they do in their life is going to be a mistake. They're going to go in the wrong direction. Okay, so then, next point. He quotes a very important verse in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yasyatma buddhi kunape cheda tuke swadi swadi kalatra disi bohomna ijadi ya tirtha salile buddhir janesu abigesu saeva gokara. This verse says that a person who's attached to the body and to their kinsmen and to the land of birth, and who goes on pilgrimages just to take a bath, is no better than an ass. An ass, A-S-S, no better than an ass. Because we are not the body, right? And we have two bodies, we're a subtle body and a gross. We're not either one of those. We're a soul. Two, our kinsman in the bodily relationship is another illusion. Who were your kinsmen in the previous life? Who will be your kinsman in the next life? If in the previous life you were a cow, and in this life you're a human being, and in the next life you're a cockroach, what does it mean, my kinsman? It has no meaning at all to it, right? So, and then number three, one is attached to their land of birth. Just like sometimes people that have been away from their land of birth for many years, and they fly back and visit their land of birth, and when they get out of the plane, they kiss the ground, like that. You say, don't, I mean, I've seen this. Yeah. So that's another illusion. That's just an illusory concept. And then the greatest illusion is going on pilgrimage to holy places just to take a bath, but not to seek the association and the instruction given by genuine saintly persons that live in those places. Okay, so this verse is a condemnation of the bodily concept of life. And Prabhupada explains the body, according to Ayurveda, is made of three substances, kapha, pitta, vayu, or coldness, or water, fire, and air. And it's a bag that contains these three things, kapha, pitta, vayu. The only reason the bag looks alive is because of the presence of the soul. When the soul leaves the body, it's just a bag that begins to disintegrate. Okay, so the next point, major point, is Prabhupada explains something very personal. He says that the lady asked him a question about, well, if you go to a sacred place, it might have some magnetism. And he says, yes. He said, just like at Vrindavan. Here I am sitting in New York, a very great city, perhaps the world's greatest city. But my heart is always hankering after that Vrindavan. Actually, I'm not happy here, he says, in New York. I shall be very happy to return to my Vrindavan, that sacred place. But then, why you are here? He says, he asks a rhetorical question, why am I here, right? He says, it is my duty. I have brought some message for you people. Because I am ordered by a superior, my spiritual master. And what is that order? whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western countries and you must distribute this knowledge. This is the instruction he got from his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, His Holiness, His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In 1922, the first time he met him, in the first minute that they talked, his guru said, "Oh, you know how to speak English, so you should spread this Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking world. Whatever you have learned, you should go to the Western countries and you must distribute this knowledge." So Prabhupada says, so in spite of all my difficulties, all my inconveniences, yeah, he came to America when he's 70 years old. Right? Most people, when they're 70, they give up. Right? He didn't give up. I am here because I am duty-bound. That is my personal convenience is I go and sit down at Vrindavan, and I shall be very comfortable there. And I'll have no anxiety, nothing of the sort. But I have taken all the risk in this old age because I am duty-bound. I am duty-bound. So I have to execute my duty in spite of all my inconveniences. That is the idea. So that should be the theme of our life. Whatever we do in life, if it has been sanctioned by bona fide guru, we should take it as my duty. It could be marriage, it could be raising children, it could be whatever. If it's been sanctioned by our spiritual master, it's our duty. It means that you cannot violate or be remiss in executing your duty. See, most people say, "Oh, I have a love marriage," but that doesn't mean anything. How many people who engaged in a love marriage have divorced? You tell me. Many. Huh? Yeah, many. The whole idea of marriage is never, in Vedic times, it's never a love marriage. It's always based on duty. Duty means it's something you must do. You cannot give it up. Otherwise, you violate your own values. And not your values, but you violate Vedic values. Right? So whenever there's a vow of marriage or a vow of initiation or any vow that's sanctified, it is an inescapable duty. This is the safety net of society when people live like that. But modern philosophers, especially the French existential philosophers, said that you're not duty-bound by anything. Every minute you can change your mind. Every minute you can change your mind. So, which concept will lead to a stable society? The French philosophers' idea that every minute you can change your mind, or that you're duty-bound your whole life when you make a vow that's sanctified by a guru. You're duty-bound. Then you have stability of society. You have your own mental stability also. And the theme is, make the best of a bad bargain. Make the best of a bad bargain. Right? It's not that, oh, I'll only do things if this is in my favor, and if it's not in my favor, I won't do it. Well, wait a minute. Not everything is going to be in our favor always. We always get sometimes stuck in situations, but make the best of a bad bargain. And the way you make the best of a bad bargain is by becoming Krishna conscious. Not by becoming a sense gratifier, because a sense gratifier becomes more and more selfish. A person who's Krishna conscious becomes more and more gracious in everything they do. So, therefore, Prabhupada says that, so this is the whole thing, the whole basic principle of spiritual advancement of knowledge. One should first be convinced that he is not this body. He is not this body. Then other spiritual knowledge will begin. This is the basic principle. You'll find it. You'll find it in the Bhagavad Gita, that this situation of spiritual life is called Brahma Bhuta. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakankshati samaksar vesubhutesu madbhaktim labhate param. Bhagavad Gita 1854. Unless one understands himself, he also cannot understand God. So this is a fundamental principle. If we analyze ourselves honestly, then we'll be able to understand many things about God. And simple examples like this. If you have an acquaintance, let's say a coworker at work, well, you have a certain relationship with your coworker, right? Is it the same relationship that you have, let's say, with your grandmother? No. What's different about it? One is a professional relationship, and the other one is a relationship of affection and dedication and perseverance and so forth, right? So there are two different types of relationships. They're not equal. Obviously, your relationship with your loving grandmother is much more significant in your life than your relationship with your coworker. So, if we have a relationship of affection and dedication to God, that reveals something. That reveals that we become intimate with God, just like our grandmother has given us that relationship, and there's intimacy there. The intimacy is that we trust her, we are always happy to see her, she's always giving, and we appreciate it, and so forth. So if we act as a loyal servant of God, just like Arjuna was, then Krishna goes out of his way to reciprocate that. Right? So we can understand something, that if you become a good grandson or granddaughter and always respect your grandmother, her let's call it unlimited love is showered upon you because you're appreciating it. So Krishna is the original father of all living entities, and he's vulnerable to the love and devotion of his children. Just like your grandmother would appreciate very much if you were always obedient, always respectful, and always appreciative, and always protective of her. She would say, you know, you're my real grandson or granddaughter, you know. So we should become endeared to God and endearing to God by devotion, and then Krishna will reciprocate that. And he says that, Ye tamam papadyante tam satara bhajamyamam mamavart manavartante manusya partha sarvasa. The 4th chapter, 11th verse, the Bhagavad Gita says, as one surrenders unto me, proportionately I reveal myself to them. Okay, so by understanding oneself, through honest, observation, one can understand a lot about God. So this, what am I? Who am I? We should learn this from Bhagavad Gita. Jai Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. And the beginning of this learning is to understand that we have 4 fundamental defects. We make mistakes, we're easily illusioned, our senses are imperfect, and we have a cheating propensity. Therefore, we need to address ourselves to Bhagavan. How did Prabhupada begin the lecture? He said, Bhagavan means no one can surpass him in knowledge. And he has all desirable opulences in full. So therefore, that's the person that we should learn from. Not from Marx, not from Darwin, not from this one or that one. But we should learn from Krishna, we must always know that Krishna has extensive knowledge, and his knowledge, there cannot be any mistake in it. So this was the whole point of the lecture. So whatever he will speak, Bhagavan, there cannot be any mistake. But for us, we have 4 imperfections. But if we listen to Krishna, we can overcome those imperfections. Okay, so those are some of the main points in this lecture. This is, he gave this lecture in 1966 in New York. So every night we're going to hear a lecture from Prabhupada, and every night meaning Monday to Thursday. We hear a lecture, and you'll get a copy of it. And if you're hearing Prabhupada's voice, and now you have the copy of the lecture, and we have a little bit of a discussion. After, you can also ask questions. And you also have the Bhagavad Gita verse and the purport. So this way, hopefully, tonight, the last thing you'll think of before you fall asleep was this lecture.
Yeah.
And the first thing you'll think of tomorrow is that I got to be there for the next one.
Yeah.
Harivilas. Thank you very much. All glories.